I'm in tons of pain right now. My back is aching, my joints, my arms, and my chest. And well, this could possibly be because I was working out really hard yesterday, but it could also be because, well, I was standing for 5 hours and 30 minutes doing nothing but rolling silverware at my work. Anyways, I've decided that through this soreness and pain I am currently going through, that I should do my USVA history project, which is on the O.K Corral shootout in Tombstone, Arizona. Now, this famous American Western shootout was only a 30-second shootout, and it was between the Cowboys, a group of outlaws, and the lawmen of Tombstone, which we will refer to as the Earp Brothers and Doc Holliday. Before I can really go into much depth about the story and shootout, I feel like we have to give more insight to, well, the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, otherwise known as the Clanton Gang, was a group of outlaws who would occasionally steal cattle, rob stagecoaches, sell that cattle, and, well, yes, kill people. This gang was mostly by the Clantons, but most specifically, its leader, or head, was Old Man Clanton. And, well, there was multiple members in this gang, but, well, it mainly consisted of family members, which was kind of surprising to me. It was Ike, Billy, Finn Clanton, as well as Tom and Frank McLaury, Curly Bill Brocius, who we also know as William Brocius, Johnny Ringo, Pete Spence, and other cowboy supporters. Now, it is really specific to understand these main people, Billy Clanton, Ike Clanton, Tom McFlaury, and Frank McLaury. It's really neat to know these four individuals because they do play kind of key roles in this story. We're now going to move on to our next part, which is coming to Tombstone and, well, the Earp brothers and how all that kind of panned out. Wyatt Earp and his three brothers, Virgil, Morgan, and James Earp, came to Tombstone after it had boomed with the silver rush. They had all come to Tombstone at different points in the year, as Virgil was first, James, Wyatt, and then Morgan last. While the silver rush had relatively failed the Earp brothers, they took jobs up in law enforcement to make money. James had avoided law enforcement and worked as a bartender. He is often seen as the forgotten Earp brother because he really, well, doesn't play that much of a character or play much of a role in this story. Each of the brothers had experience in law enforcement, as Wyatt and Morgan were considered special policemen and Virgil was Tombstone's town marshal. Wyatt specifically was a lawman in Dodge City, Kansas before this event, and when he arrived in Tombstone, he worked as a gambler and saloon guard. Doc Holliday, a dentist, gambler, and gunslinger, joined the Earp brothers in Tombstone as he was a close friend of Wyatt Earp and, well, was invited there by him. Now, Wyatt Earp is going to be our main focus of this story, considering, well, he told people this story, and, well, while there were other witnesses, he was kind of the main head of the story. Our next part, we kind of want to go into the bad ties of how the confrontation between the Clanton gang, or the Cowboys, and the Earp brothers, including Doc Holliday. Now, the town of Tombstone was specifically known for its saloons and gambling. There really wasn't much to do there except that and, well, get drunk. In the morning of March 25th, 1881, Ike Clanton and Tom McLaury, who were part of the Cowboys, arrived in Tombstone for supplies. During this short period, there would be tensions between the Earp brothers and the Cowboys. In that same evening, Tom McLaury would be confronted outside the local saloon after he refused to cooperate and carried a weapon. It was said that he was probably drunk during this time and intoxicated. And, well, forgive me for this timeline jump back and forth, but we need to get to specific points to go over this brief history of this shootout. Anyways, he was arrested and fined for his behavior that night. The next morning, Ike Clanton was arrested for threatening the Earp brothers in a drunken rage as well as carrying a firearm. After Ike's release, a confrontation between Ike Clanton and Doc Holliday happened. Doc Holliday expressed in a delightful demeanor when telling Ike that some of his boys were in jail after Ike was released that evening. This really deepened Ike's spite towards the Doc Holliday and the Earp brothers, just because, well, Doc Holliday was making fun of him, saying that more gang members were locked up in jail, considering the fact that they were carrying weapons and always drunk. Now, this is where we really get into the nitty-gritty of this section. I'm going to go into more depth about what happened after the shootout because I think it's more interesting than the actual shootout. This is the main part of the story, and I will go on to explain the rest and explain why it's significant. Well, explain its significance. 5 gang members of the Cowboys were spotted in an open lot in O.K Corral. Billy Clanton, Tom McLaury, Ike Clanton, Claire Bourne, and Frank McLaury. During this period, it was, well, illegal to carry firearms in Tombstone. It was illegal to carry firearms pretty much in any major city or town. 2 of the Cowboys were said to be carrying weapons, as the other 3 were unarmed. Even after the Earp brothers were told by Johnny Bahan, a sheriff of Tombstone, that they were trying to disarm them, the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday still confronted them. It is still debated today who fired the first shot in Tombstone, but after 30 seconds, the dust had cleared. Billy Clanton, Tom McLaury, and Frank McLaury were dead, and Ike and Claire Bourne had run from the fight. Virgil, Morgan, and Doc Holliday were wounded, but none of the lawmen had sustained any serious damage or casualties. This is the part where I go into why this has an impact on American history, but I go into depth about what happened after the shootout. This is what we know as the Cowboys' revenge. The shootout in O.K Corral would leave its mark in American history as one of the most famous American Western shootouts. Its significance in that alone is important, but it also would become a symbol of Western history and its impact on law and justice in a lawless frontier. Even though this was a big event, it would not be the end for the Earp brothers and the Cowboys, as well as Doc Holliday. The Cowboys would retaliate and try to assassinate the Earp brothers. In December of 1881, Virgil Earp was shot in an ambush, leaving him crippled. Later, in March 1882, Morgan Earp was assassinated by one of the Cowboy gang members. A few days later, well, Virgil Earp was quickly trying to be escorted out of Tombstone out of concern for his safety and, well, another assassination attempt. Forgive me for this wild, rambunctious amount of timeline here, but it's really, really difficult to just get everything out in one piece. Frank Stillwell, another cowboy, and Ike Clanton from earlier, who was in the shootout, had attempted to finish the job with Virgil Earp. Not before this, they were confronted by Wyatt Earp. Wyatt suspected that Frank was involved in the murder of Morgan Earp. The next day, after this confrontation, the body of Frank Stillwell was found along the tracks, as he was murdered by Wyatt Earp the previous night. Ike Clanton had escaped and run off without Frank, and, well, these events would lead into what is now known as the Tombstone Vendetta, or otherwise, the Earp Vendetta. It is important to note this because Wyatt Earp would go on to kill anyone who he thought was associated with the murder of his brother, Morgan Earp. Into more detail, this is our last part considering this is a brief history. A warrant for the arrest of Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Warren Earp, his youngest brother, who joined him after his brother was maimed, Jack Johnson, and Sherman McMasters for being suspects in the murder of Frank Stillwell. They would inevitably leave Tombstone and form a posse with other Earp supporters, killing anyone who they thought associated with the death of Morgan. They would go on to kill 3 other cowboy gang members, Florentino Cruz and William Brosius. Johnny Ringo, as mentioned earlier, who was a well-known gunslinger in the Cowboys, was also killed, but is largely unknown who he was killed by, but his body was found by a tree and a bullet in his right temple. Now, this really marks the end of the Tombstone story. There is a few other parts that it goes on to, but after this, the Cowboys are mostly disbanded. And, well, there becomes tensions between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Anyways, that's really the end of my project. Please let me know if I really failed to meet any crucial criteria. This was just a brief history, and, well, that's really it. Anyways, thank you.